will be presenting his talk, My Indie Journey Building Kinopio.
Hey all, thanks for having me here. You can call me Perry too if you want, that's a bit shorter. So the first thing you might notice is these aren't like slides. This is actually the app that I built. It's called Kinopio, and as mentioned, it's a kind of whiteboarding, note-taking, spatial thinking tool for you and whoever you want to collaborate with. And so this talk is about the journey that I went on building it, and this space is my slides. So before I talk more about myself, I guess I'll just talk about the basics of the app for context. But it's a spatial note-taking tool. If a computer is a bicycle for the mind, I thought maybe Kinopio could be a race car for the mind. And unlike a lot of tools that have like a sticky note tool or a text tool or a rectangle tool, Kinopio kind of starts with first principles, and the idea is you can click, you can type, and now you have cards. If you want to connect two cards together, you just drag from one to the other, and they're connected. And a lot of times in tools like these, you need to move more than one thing at a time. You just select or use paint to select, and you just move them, drag them, and also perform any bulk operations you want, but I'll get into that later. And also, being very like text focused, you can put anything into a card. You can paste the URL, so I've got two URLs pretty handy here. So this is like a document URL about a cool building in Brazil, I think. And it just kind of shows up. You can also do the same for YouTube videos, like so. And if you're still watching Skyrim memes in 2016, you're a weirdo just like me. All right. And you can also throw in files, PDFs. I think I've got a couple in here I can demo. So here's the PDF. Just kind of saves as a file that you can download at whatever convenience you want. And yeah, a subset of Markdown works, and all this works also on your phone, not just for reading, but for creating cards and connecting them and all that good stuff. But that's just the tip of the iceberg. The business model is it's free for 100 cards. There's no sign-up required, like you can use it kind of anonymously, which also helps make it work offline. And then after you pass that limit and you want more, it costs $8 a month, $80 a year, or $250 for a lifetime subscription. Alrighty. All right, so back to me. So these days, this is what I build full time. I've been doing it for 6 or 7 years now. So I do the design, I do the code, and occasionally do the marketing, which I'm less good at. But I grew up in Toronto. I kind of have a non-traditional background, like not a CS degree, although I hung out with a lot of people in the CS degree department at Ryerson U of T. But anyways, I went to school for biology and urban planning. I worked as a cashier, as a waiter, I worked in construction. Fun fact, earlier there was a head from RBC talking. I helped build floors 10 to 20 of the RBC tower in Toronto. So if it's crooked, it's creaky, whoops. But also throughout that time, like I've always been like fascinated with computers ever since our dad bought us our first 33 whole megahertz. But I've been like illustrating and drawing and just making things with computers for a long time and not really realizing, especially back then, that was a job, that design was even a job. So when I went to school, grad school, which was for urban planning, I kind of realized, hey guys, I'll do the maps, I'll do the infographics, you guys do the boring policy stuff for group projects, and I kind of realized that was the stuff I liked a lot more. And so when I left school, I kind of thought, okay, instead of urban planning, I'll try and get a job either as an illustrator, which I did at a tech company, which turned into me working for them as a designer, which turned into me building the things that I made, which turned into me being a developer of sort. So I left New York in around 2015 to work at Fog Creek Software, which, as Tyrell mentioned, is the maker of Stack Overflow and Trello, among a lot of other things. They hired me to make sort of their third major project, Glitch. But I guess one of the things I should mention is the Fog Creek has a really interesting business model, or they did, they're kind of dead now. But they made FogBugs, which is a bug tracker. Actually, for a time, they competed pretty directly with Jira, but similar to linear Jira if you're familiar. But they'd take the profits from FogBugs and they'd funnel them into new projects. And the ones that succeeded, they'd spin off into separate companies. So that's how Stack Overflow and Trello started. And so I was hired to come up with their sort of third major product, which eventually turned into Glitch. And Glitch was a web development tool where you basically just open up an editor, and anything you typed would spin up a live server and update your changes from the back end and the front end. So people can make a pretty wide variety of tools and stuff, and it was pretty cool to see what people did with it. And I designed and built the early version of the editor, the community site, and it was a pretty ideal scenario because we were all living off the profits from Fogbugs. And it was a small team of just like 2 or 3 people. We had a clear problem to solve. We had really great mentorship from the CEO. And yeah, it launched really successfully, I think, because the CEO and the investors are really well known. It got really nice write-ups from The Verge and TechCrunch and things like that. And it looked pretty great for a while. But eventually, like, VC pressure caused the company to like grow. Like, the mandate became, oh, double the team size every couple months. But it seemed out of step with the things we were actually working on. It kind of made the working environment not so fun, but also there was a cultural clash between us oldies who wanted to make like a tool for authors and creators versus management who wanted something where like the growth metrics go up and up and up, and the best way to do that is to have people who aren't necessarily creators, like readers and viewers of code projects coming. And so it kind of changed, it kind of splintered product philosophy. But anywho, 2019, I got kind of bored and I left, and eventually made Kinopio. And I kind of wanted to solve a lot of the pain points that I had working at Frog Creek and other companies. I also worked at FreshBooks, which I guess is the other notable one. Is that plans and specs are just hard to write whenever you want to kind of discuss the whys, the what we should be building. It was always hard to like convince people, and writing a great document is a lot of work, and a lot of people just didn't do it. But also, a lot of the tools we have and a lot of the management processes we have are very organized around treating people as cogs. Like, how do we operate as a line cook? I send you the bug ticket, you do the ticket, we verify the ticket, et cetera, et cetera. But how do we like come up with new ideas, and also critically when we're working on big projects, how do we keep the why we're doing this in context, which I think ultimately leads to better products. And also, a lot of products in this space, like the whiteboarding space, are very focused on generating very clean diagrams, which is great, but I think diagramming and thinking are 2 very distinct tasks that kind of require 2 different approaches. So now I live in Charlotte, North Carolina. This year is the first year I saw snow, like coming here to CUSEC, so that's pretty awesome. It's funny what you miss when you haven't seen it in a while. But while developing Kinopio, I kind of realized that a creativity tool and a productivity tool can kind of work together. You can have something where you kind of express yourself, but also express an idea or try and convince other people of things, and those 2 things can kind of work. They can kind of complement each other, the left side of your brain, the right side of your brain working together. But also when you move things around and put things around, like this MP3, I don't think it'll play, but it does play. It kind of helps you like solidify where things are, like a map of your neighborhood. You kind of know, oh, okay, over here is like a house that I really recognize with a red door, and it kind of sticks in your head, and that's kind of something we call spatial memory. So over time, as people requested new features, and as I kind of have my own ambitions for the project grow and grow, I kept adding new ways to personalize. For example, with cards, you can turn any card into a checkbox by just typing that, and then now you can check it off. The idea is you can go from thinking about things to doing things pretty easily. You can invite people in to spaces. You can backlink. You can use backlinks to link concepts and ideas between spaces. So for example, this feature tag will show other examples in other documents of other cards that I have labeled with that feature tag. So bug tag. Oops. And just fun personal stuff like being able to change the color of cards, I got this idea from my label maker where you can just kind of add fun little decorations to things. And some of this stuff is obviously not practical, or it's practical, but it's not like a thing that like you would necessarily think of if you thought, okay, I need to build a tool for productivity. But I think the tools like features like these help ideas stick in our minds and just help things feel more memorable and fun. And you know, in a world full of boring software, I think it makes sense to make something that stands out. You can also do something radical. It's not that radical, but you can change the background of your space to whatever image you want, even animated ones, but I'll go back to this for now. So there's also, of course, dark mode, which is a little tricky to develop when users can change the colors of anything, their own content. So yeah, it's like when you select a color, for example, of a card or a line, it's not just 5 pastel, like designer-approved pastels, it's any color you want, essentially, that you can generate on your own. And so making that work in dark mode is, a little tricky sometimes. You can also do things like, a lot of times in spatial tools, things get clustered up, and you kind of don't have any room to write new things in, so you can kind of use this feature to select all below and move things around as needed. There's also desktop and iOS apps. So this is a desktop app, works totally fine in a browser. There's also an iOS app. And also one of the day one features is full export and import options, including Obsidian's canvas format. So yeah, I definitely don't want to lock you into your data. You can also filter, not just, or search. You can also search, but not just search, but also filter, show little handy guides to like when the cards were made or updated, and also who authored them. And you can also fade out all incomplete to-dos so that you can kind of stay on task if you're in a task-doing mood. There are also community features, so spaces can be public or private. They're private by default. But once they're public, you can opt into adding them to what's called an explore list. So it's like a public list of spaces that people just wanted to share with the community. And I moderate all of these, like I get an email whenever someone adds it to the list. So yeah, it's a cool way to discover what other people are doing with the tool. This is the live feature, which just shows spaces that people are currently kind of working at or looking at right now that are public. And so you can also add code blocks, which is pretty handy. I'll just make this bigger. And it kind of uses a custom parser that's pretty fast. And you can, of course, change type of parsing. New for this year is a toolbar. And the toolbar includes, you might have seen it earlier, but like line feature, which lets you divide a page, but also move down to make more room in a page. You can use this for, page dividers. You can use this for section dividers, anything you want. There's also boxes. This is a box, but I'll drag a new one. And cards inside of boxes just move together. It's a handy way to organize information. Also, if you want to like add a card into a box that doesn't quite fit, it'll jiggle, and then when you let go, it'll release. So kind of a handy way to organize things, group things. And of course, there's drawing, so you can just draw whatever you want. Drawing kind of works so that it always maintains legibility, even if you draw right on top of your text with a dark color. Okay, and the source is available, so Kinopio kind of consists of an app that has a client app and an API, a server app, and the client app is available to be read if you're so inclined. So in terms of what you can use this for, here are a couple examples. I'll go through them pretty quickly. Let's see, so there's a roadmap, which is where I put all the stuff I plan to build. And I circled the thing I think is most important. You can also make spaces open, which means they're open to comments. People can come in and upvote things and say request what they want. Although there's also a Discord and a support forum. Let's see what else is there. Here's an example of a mood board. Just somebody gathering ideas and inspirations for things they just find really cool. Sometimes they'll use it in projects and whatnot. I can zoom out to get a better view of all that. Pretty cool. If you're familiar with Arena, it's kind of like an Arena channel, but like in a very customized way. If you're cooler than me, there's this draft somebody wrote for Party Goer's Handbook, which talks about which drugs to take or not to take. I'll leave that one up to you. Decide if it's legit. Here's something I created just this year. I should have done it a long time ago, but now every time somebody kind of like says something nice about Kinopio, whether direct to me in email or in Discord or whatnot, I'll just paste a copy of it here and just have it, and if people want to read it too, that's cool. Let's see. Here's a spec that I'm currently working on. I work with a contractor named Lucas sometimes, and right now he helps with the iOS app and sometimes some server stuff. And we're working on a feature that allows you to invite people to your space, but they don't have to sign in before editing. Right now you do have to sign in. And so we kind of discussed a couple approaches, and we kind of work asynchronously. So when he adds a card, I get an email notification about the new cards that are added, and I come in and check. And when you're working with someone and you start from the beginning together, all this chaos kind of makes sense. So we kind of discussed the 3 different ways we do this and settle on one of the approaches. Let's see. Here's a really new kind of emerging use case of people making Christmas cards, birthday cards, and whatnot. So you can see it kind of is a pretty horizontal tool that works for a lot of things. Here's another spec me and Lucas are working on. This is so that you can, on the iOS app, if you just search from the springboard the name of one of your spaces, it'll just show up there, as opposed to you having to open up the app first to jump to a specific project. Let's see, this is my own personal inspiration space. It's just a collection of hundreds of images that I've collected over the years. Let's see. But yeah, it goes back to like 2011. It's kind of a giant space. But anyways, I like to look at this to like get ideas on graphic design projects that I'm working on, or just images for blog posts. Let's see. Here's one that's pretty cool. It might be pretty relevant. Somebody wrote or collected a list of all of the cybersecurity topics they could think of. Oh, it's not loading. Oh, here it is. All right. So auth issues, Wi-Fi things to look into, firewall stuff. Yeah, it's a lot. How to do an SLA, a service level agreement. It's a pretty intense space. I mean, yeah, it's fun reading if you feel so inclined. Here's another space. It's a mood board. It has a lot of YouTube videos as well, which is kind of neat. But yeah, this is a designer who uses Kinopio to just map out like, hey, if I had a cafe and I wanted to design the aesthetic for it, how would I do that? And then yeah, there's a lot of like cool physical inspiration examples that they've collected here. It's kind of neat. And here's another space of mine where I've kind of haphazardly collected all of the services that Kinopio uses. So the client is hosted on Netlify. I have an image proxy that handles music file uploads and how much I pay for each of these things. And actually, yeah, the price to host Kinopio for me is like very low. It's like $300 a month, including like all the third-party services that I rely on. So one of the things I was pretty careful with from first principles is just to make sure the service is easy and cheap to host. So worst case scenario, I can still end up hosting it indefinitely. One of the other things that kind of motivated me to build Kinopio is that I was just sick of like so many of the products that we use every day, either kind of like getting sunset where like the team gets acquired and they're like, oh, too bad guys, I knew you were relying on this, but screw you, because we now work at Microsoft. Or in shitifying, we really need to pay our investors back or find some way to juice the numbers, and so we're gonna make the product a lot worse for you and track you. And yeah, I kind of wanted an alternative to make an alternative to that. But Kinopio didn't start as a thing you see. Actually, the first concept was an idea to make a better bug tracker. So if I mentioned I worked at Fog Creek, and the product that made all the money was a bug tracker. So I thought, hey, I'm also helping on this bug tracker. Maybe there's a better version of a bug tracker. These are just super early mock-ups. They're like kind of crappy. And this prototype logo that eventually became the real logo was just something I modeled in Blender in like a couple minutes. Anywho, everyone I showed it to said it kind of sucked, or that it they didn't really get it. So I kind of took a step back, and I kind of started with something that, a practice that we kind of were taught to do at Glitch is start with a list of principles. Like, what are the problems you're trying to solve? What are your kind of product principles? And so a lot of these are things that I kind of mentioned, like it's a tool to get your creative chaotic thoughts out, and you can wrangle the chaos, and it's kind of memorable, it has a unique design, and it also, everything works on touch on your phone. So this is the first mock-up I did. It's like, 6 years old now, and I was kind of like halfway through it, I knew, okay, I'm kind of in the right direction. I didn't bother to do the bottom of it. the Zoom thing. Anyways, it ended up kind of looking like this in the end, but this was the first, so I started building it, and this is like the first version. I just got Vue to run essentially. And then I'll just give more of this stuff really quick. I started just kind of adding the base interactions, barely any CSS, like can I add cards arbitrarily. This was the loading screen for Glitch while a project spun up from S3 or wherever we hosted the containers. And so I kind of took that idea and I used that as the kind of selection tool in Kinopio. Also, you can hold shift and you can get a traditional block selection too if you want. Anywho, so this is me just, prototyping up, connecting things, clicking things, selecting things, all the edge cases of when you drag things around, how does the screen move with it. This is just the first version that actually shipped and kind of looks like the thing. And even back then, there was still no server. This is just fully a client app, so there's no auth. Everything was saved to local storage. But then to do collaboration, that's when I built server side, which is a very simple Node.js server with WebSockets and whatnot. So that's how that evolved. But also in the course of evolution, it's not like an A and B path, and I collected a couple examples of features or things that I built that ended up kind of removing because they either weren't used or they had performance impacts that I wasn't aware of, or they were just kind of a hassle. So I'll talk about some of the examples. So before, when you went to pay, like to add your credit card to subscribe to the app, you do it from a form within the app, and this is actually just a Stripe element form wrapped with like my own CSS to look like the rest of how the app looked at the time. But there was a couple reasons I kind of stopped doing this. The main one was just credit card taking is a lot more complicated than this, even if you're using Stripe form elements, because like other countries have different requirements, and I kept getting emails from customers in India being like, I couldn't sign up because the India Royal Bank Commission or whatever it's called, forces me to put my address into credit card forms when you're signing up for a subscription for like anti-theft or anti-fraud or whatever. But anyways, there was a lot of like country-specific use cases, so eventually I just gave up and I now link to the standard Stripe form, and it works pretty great. Let's see what else. Another thing that I tried was having referral credits, so you could like earn a discount on your own subscription whenever you signed other people up. And I made it to keep scope low, I made it pretty flexible, pretty low scope, but I found that people didn't really use it, and it actually made referring people a lot harder for people who intrinsically wanted to do it, because they were kind of unsure, okay, I kind of like this app, I want to share it with people, but now I'm not sure whether I should use the referral system or not. And when I talk to people about it, if I say I'm use my referral credit, they might not, they may feel that it's not a genuine recommendation. And word of mouth has turned out to be the best way that Kinopio has grown. So I ended up removing this system as well. And also, there were a lot of people trying to game the system, which was fine with me, really. If you aren't going to pay for something, I don't really care that much. But at the same time, it wasn't really being used legitimately, and it kind of hurt the legitimate use case, so I kind of removed that. Another thing is let's see, actually, I might be running out of time. Something I'm still working on is the ability to connect, have connection lines connect to more than just these top right connector points. And I've tried, nearest position. I've tried anchoring to specific positions, which isn't shown here. But every interaction I've got still doesn't feel right. Some people felt the movement of the line along the card felt a little creepy and spidery. So I'm still working on that. Let's see, I'm running low on time, I think, right? I'm okay. 20 minutes? Okay, cool, so I'll just move on. So when Kinopio launched, it was, I put on Product Hunt and Hacker News, and a blog post I did about it on Hacker News. And it was front page, product of the day or whatever for the first little while, which is cool, and I got a lot of interest from investors and whatnot. And that kind of forced me to really solidify my position on kind of how I'm building Kinopio to last a really long time. And so I wrote this blog post called In Search of Organic Software, which is essentially talking about a business model that's not built primarily to exit. And it's kind of a risk to alienate VCs because we don't have a lot of, unlike other industries, we don't have a lot of other funding methods. There's angel investment, there's VC, but there isn't like just like if you want to build a factory, you get investment and then return shareholder dividends and whatnot. It's either go big or go home, and I didn't really want either of those options. And so Kinopio exists in a market where I'm kind of standing alone in the sense that every other thing I compete with has many, many employees and multiple millions of dollars for the most part. And so there's obvious downsides of having none of that money. The first is you gotta grow slowly. You can't necessarily buy customers like with ad campaigns and things like that. I can't really do the math on if I spend $1 to acquire a customer and they stick around and spend $6 or $2, then I just turn that lever up because I can't do it infinitely. I have to pay my own bills, so I contract on the side as well, just to stay alive for now. And I can only, because I'm the main one working on the product, I can only do one thing at a time, so I'm either bug fixing, or I'm building a new feature, or I'm doing marketing. And it'd be great to be able to do multiple things at the same time. And so my old boss, Joel Spolsky, he wrote this, and he's the founder of Fog Creek and also the CEO of Stack Overflow, he was. But he wrote this article called Ben & Jerry products versus Amazon products. And basically the gist of it was like Amazon products you're building on this new technology and you need all the money to operate a loss and just become the de facto industry standard. And you're growing really big and you don't have a lot of competition at the current moment. And VC investment is great for that. It's kind of designed for that actually. But it's not so great for Ben & Jerry's products. So Ben & Jerry, the ice cream company, there's lots of ice cream brands. Everybody knows what ice cream is. You're not going to blow people's minds with a whole new type of ice cream and they'll never be able to go back. So when you're building a product in a competitive market, Ben & Jerry's product is more kind of slower, steadier, built to last, which isn't super great for the expectations of most VC funds. So anywho, the upsides of having no funding is another way of saying that is upsides of having no debt is that the growth that you have is slower, it's trust-based, the customers that you do have tend to be stickier and last a lot longer. You're also doing long-term decision-making because you know that in 10 years you're gonna be the one, or someone close to you is gonna be the one debugging something in some code you wrote, so you wanna make sure that you can read it in a couple of years, and that kind of makes sense. And you can also take a lot of risks that big companies can't do. I can have real customer support whenever people mail me, it's me they get to, or I'm in the Discord, etc. Obviously you can tell I have a design point of view. My business model is simpler, so I can offer lifetime plans, which is something that bigger companies set up around subscriptions can't do for forecasting reasons. I can build weird features like, you might have noticed I'm just hovering my mouse around this card and it's kind of sticking to me, and it just kind of jiggles when I come off of it. It's kind of what I call a fidget feature. The idea is that most apps are designed around what do you do when you input information and what does it look like when you want to output information. But I think most of the time you spend in an app is just reading it or thinking, like looking at the page and deciding what I'm going to do next. And I think that's where a fidget feature kind of comes in. It's exactly like pen flipping if you can do that, but it's just a cool, neat thing that's easier to do when you don't have a lot of stakeholders. And I can build for creators and enthusiasts. I can use things like Markdown, not have to worry about having to provide a WYSIWYG. So if you open up a card and click the question mark, it kind of documents itself, and for the most part, people are more than happy to learn things, so I don't ever feel like I have to design for the lowest common denominator, which is nice. And also, yeah, you can sell things to both consumers and businesses. You don't necessarily have to choose in a way that is meaningful. So there are people who use Kinopio for work, and people obviously who don't. And I try and build for both sides, and I don't necessarily have to I don't necessarily feel inclined to only build for one group of people. And so one of my strategies, I guess, is to basically build the right thing for as long as you can, to solve the right problem, find the right problem to solve, for the right way, for the right people. And so I do that by building in public, I'll post things on social media about new features, prototypes, animated GIFs and stuff that's kind of in development, get people's feedback. I also have a Discord, of course, and then I'm also kind of driven by my own personal taste. So the combination of those three things kind of shape the trajectory of the app. But also I'm really inspired by the philosophy of Gunpei Yokoi, who's known as the father of the Game Boy, whose quote is like lateral thinking with withered technology, which basically means the Game Boy was just this thing that used old calculator parts, off-the-shelf parts. And I like to use off-the-shelf web things. So as wherever it's feasible, I like to use lower level technologies with the web. SVG, Canvas, HTML, whatever. Just so, because they're gonna last a long time, and that goes back to the idea of building for the long term. But basically, my business model is as long as people keep upgrading and say that I'm building the right thing, the graph's going up, then I'll keep doing this. So it's been 6 years of slow, steady increases. Nothing too great, and again, yeah, that's why I've had to do a lot of contracting. But midway through last year, things started really going up. And there's a couple causes. One is that it got kind of mini viral on TikTok, where somebody kind of talked about the Christmas card that they made with Kinopio. Also, I did a lot better at updating the app to be more SEO friendly. It could be cumulative word of mouth. I also increased the price and focused a lot on stability and performance. It's hard to say which of those was the main thing. It's going to be different depending on who I ask. But I think it's better just, if you know something's working, kind of do it than to try and repeat. Especially with virality, it's kind of cringe to chase virality. I think it just kind of happens with you just doing your best work and putting it out there. And so there's this talk by Gail Goodman. She did for the Business and Software Conference, I think, in 2012, and she kind of came up with this idea of the 4 stages of SaaS growth. And the first couple years are the blade years, where nothing's really happening, then something really happens, and then you're doing really well after that. So who knows if this is an inflection point or just kind of blip in time. I guess I'll need more time to find out. But it's cool to see things happening. Maybe for time. 13. All right. Oh shit. Okay. So I guess where I see the market going for software is that it's kind of undemocratizing. So in the sense of back in the day, everybody was using the best version of the thing they wanted to use, and it was generally free. So an example that I think of is search engines. So a long time ago, we had crappy search engines and good ones. So we had Alta Vista, Ask Jeeves, Yahoo, then Google, and Google kind of won the market because they made the best product. And for a while, everything was good. Everybody was using Google, it was great, it was free, and the richest person in the world and the poorest person in the world all had a great search time. But now kind of Google's a little shitifying. The results aren't as good, they're full of more slop. And so we're kind of back to a world where there are alternates to Google. So Kagi's one I really use and pay for, and it's pretty great. A lot of people use DuckDuckGo or Brave to search. And so I think for most people, they won't really care that the default isn't great, but I think it's also a mistake. Because of that, it's a mistake to chase most people. Most people are going to be great with the defaults that come with their computer, like the note-taking app and whatnot. But for a couple of enthusiasts who are really interested in paying for things, or paying for the best tool for the job, or something that resonates with them personally, I think there's a market for that still. And so here are 2 cherry-picked examples. You can buy a crazy expensive lamp, or you can buy a cheap one. They both do the same job, but if you're a lamp enthusiast or interior design enthusiast, the lamp exists for a reason. A better example, I think, is this toilet paper holder for 170 bucks. Usually people get those for free with their homes, or can buy a $5 one from Target or wherever. But I guess there's 2 ways to look at this. One is you're an idiot for buying a brass paper toilet holder for 180 bucks. But then there's another way to look at it, which is, okay, I'm gonna live for 40, 50 more years, I'm gonna go to the bathroom, X amount of times per day, multiply those numbers together, and amortize them, and then having a really great bathroom experience is 0.02 cents. I'd be crazy not to buy this brass toilet holder. So there are a lot of ways to rationalize products. But also I think software is different than physical products in that the scale of the money is different. I don't think people are going to be paying $3,000 for most software, but I think getting someone from $0 to $1 is just as much effort, pretty much, as getting someone to spend $100 in real life, and then it's kind of a sliding scale. But if you can do that, you're definitely building a great product if people vote with their dollars. Let's see. And so, just like being a YouTube creator, craft software also has to kind of share the story behind it. I'll skip over that. And I think the online or software world and the physical world are kind of becoming the same kind of market. And let's see. I'll skip over this because I think it'll come up in a panel. And how am I doing for time? Oh, okay. Actually, no, I won't then. All right. So all of my personal favorite apps are from indie creators. Maybe a lot of yours are too. Whether it's like note-taking tools or feed reading tools or image processing tools. I guess the question is, should you do your own thing? And I would say, if you want to wear a lot of hats, do you have a specific problem to solve? Are you like maxed out on luck stats? Do you have some savings built up? Then I think it's not the worst choice. That being said, I think I found, it's not included here, but like an article from Harvard Business Review or something that said like the average age of a CEO is like 45. I'm not quite there yet either, so I've got some time. But I also think I think part of the reason for that is it just takes a long time to both build up the skills of, in my case, of design and engineering both together to do these things, but also more critically to find a problem that you're passionate about solving. And also it's not about necessarily doing your own thing or having a job. You can have side projects, you can develop side projects into real projects while having a job, which is probably a smarter way to start. But either way, I say my ending advice is have a blog, write about the things you're interested in, write about the things you're working on, because yeah, the people you meet through that and the people that kind of follow you through that will stick around or stick with you a lot more than they will on social media. And I found it really useful. There are a lot of easy ways to get started. But anywho, if you like Kinopio, you want to try it out for yourself, there's a coupon code you can use when you upgrade, CUSEC Montreal, to save 50% off your first year. And also, I'm told to share with you the Scavenger Hunt QR code, which I'll leave on the screen for a while if you're interested. Actually, I'll just move it down here, sorry. And in the meantime, if anybody has any questions, yeah.
I have two. The first being, when you started out, how did you handle like all of your competition being such like big names or even smaller ones? Like when I was seeing this for the first bit before you started doing all the when you were like showing off originally, my first thought was going to something like Obsidian, and I'm sure everybody else who like may come from it is being like, oh, I'm coming from Obsidian. How did you handle dealing with a big idea being very similar and like possibly losing people over that?
That's a good question. I guess the short answer is like ignorance is bliss to some degree, but I think part of it is, and I guess I've gotten that for Obsidian, but also for like whiteboarding tools like Miro, which are like much bigger, and also for Figma, FigJam. Somebody just came up and told me about that. But I guess I'm trying to solve the problem in a very unique way, like with like unique interactions and a different model for sharing and stuff like that. But I also think no matter what, like pretty much everything has been built to some degree, and this is why I kind of reference Ben & Jerry as like a type of company. If you say I'm going to build X, it's really easy to hear, oh, but Y already exists. Why would you build it? And so by that logic, nobody would ever be able to build anything. But I think the market does want like alternative options, either to express your own personality or just because you like a different way something works. So yeah, I think that's part of also one of the reasons that I kind of designed Kinopio as a business to be more of a Ben & Jerry's, like, oh, it's just an ice cream company in a field of ice cream companies, rather than this is going to disrupt the market and be the everything to everyone.
Okay. And secondly, you said you started developing on this in 2019.
Mm-hmm.
A couple months later, the world fell apart.
Yeah.
How did, if it did at all, how did like COVID and social stuff happening in 2020 and beyond impact any part of development or just like doing things at all?
Yeah, I mean, it definitely gave me a lot more time to work on it. But I think, if anything, I started working on it too late, because around that time is also when Zoom really became big. Everybody was looking for, like, what's the collaborative tool that we can use? What is the way to replace all of the physical analogs, like whiteboarding, or meetings that we have in our team. And I wasn't quite there technology-wise to have those features. It just made me kind of fast-track those things. But yeah, for the most part, because I was still too early to take advantage of those shifts, I didn't really benefit too much from them.
And then like the negative side was that aside from being shut in, like everybody else.
I mean, that was the main negative. I think, yeah, the product hunt launch was like a year-ish after, and I think people were in the right mindset for it, so it actually helped in a lot of ways more than it hurt.
Oh, good.
Which is, yeah, kind of weird to say, but yeah. Uh-huh.
When you publish these documents, like you do on Notion.
Oh yeah, I forgot to say, I've a couple ways of sharing it. I don't have a way to share the whole URL with you because it's kind of it has like a UI, an ID in it, but you can scan this QR code. The other thing I'll do is I will go into here, I will add it to Explore. So if you go to kinopio.club and you open the app, you'll see it listed in the Explore list. So there's two things I'll do. I'll just keep this QR code open too. Mm-hmm.
So you said the majority of time right now you spend on building the app, but how much time the maintenance takes, and how many people do you have on your team?
Right. So for the most part, it's me, and I have a contractor who I met through while I was working at a different contracting gig, who helps me with the iOS app and some of the service stuff. But he works about a week a month. And what was the first part of your question?
What part was both maintenance and the other?
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Eventually, once an app becomes mature enough, the kind of delineation between building new stuff and maintenance kind of fuses in the sense of when you're building a new thing, a lot of times you want to reuse UI components from pre-existing things. So when I build like a dialog window like this, I'm not rewriting the CSS and whatnot and the components for each of these bits. But I might have like a requirement that needs that piece to do more. And so I'll refactor the old component to be like easier to read, like, you know, I'll try and re-understand it. And so it all kind of blurs together after a certain point. Anyone from the side of the room? All right, yeah.
So you mentioned about writing a blog and, okay, gotcha.
You mentioned about writing a blog and that people would stick around on like social media. Is this what happened to you? Did you write a blog and some people stuck around?
Yeah, absolutely. Actually, I'll open up my blog now. Let me open up one of these. So I've been writing this blog for like, let's see. I'll go to the archives page. From 2014. I mean, before this I had like live journaling blogs that were like more about like, you know, girls I liked and whatnot. But this is like a blog about my real interest, which is software. And so a lot of times I get asked the same questions like, how's Kinopio made? And like, what are the business model? How are the choices? And so a lot of stuff I can just link to, let's see, wait. I can link to old documents that I wrote about like how I build sync and how I do caching and offline and things like that. And it's so useful to be able to send people to this page. Also, this is just a Jekyll blog, so it's custom. So I kind of added my own like subscribe by email to be notified. And so a lot of people find me or subscribe to the site through that, but also people use RSS or just check in. But also it's a thing you can submit to sites like Hacker News or forums or whatever. Yeah, people always want to read new stuff, especially if it's like long form and you've really thought it through and whatnot.
Where do you publish it and how can we find it?
So the site is at pketh.org. So throughout this slide, if you open it up, you'll see a couple links to some of these. Let me see if I can search for this. So I've like linked to some of the articles that I've written, like contextually. Here's the one on support and whatnot. But yeah, pketh.org. Now let's jump down to the bottom. Oops.
From your blog, I could see like the years that you were posting. So, how does one balance necessarily working versus like blogging here? The example that comes to mind is not much of a flattering one. Who's somebody who spends all of their time talking to the community, usually fighting inside the community. That's besides the point. So, how do you balance like doing something like this that puts a lot of work in and maintaining your software or building or stuff like that?
Yeah, it's definitely tricky. I guess the short answer is I don't write enough. That's what everyone tells me. But I guess one of the best pieces of advice that I ever got when I was working at Glitch is kind of to redefine writing as this thing you kind of do on the side when you have free time to, oh no, this is the actual main work that you're doing, and it's like as important as developing and marketing. And I still do like Tweet, Blue Sky, whatever, but what I do is, here's a life hack. I use this tool called Buffer. And so I don't really care that much about social media, to be honest, but when I do have like an idea or a thought that comes to my mind, I'll post it to like a bunch of social media networks at once, and I can do the same thing for marketing releases for Kinopio. I'll post to a bunch of those social media networks at once, and I won't actually read social media. It's just a read-only medium for me, or a write-only medium for me, and that's way cheaper than therapy.
May I ask what's the tech stack for Kinopio?
Sure. So there's kind of two tech stacks in the sense that there's a client app, the thing that runs in your browser, and the server app. Are you more interested in the front end or the client app or the server? I'll tell you both, but.
Yeah, let's do both.
Okay, so the client app is a Vue.js app. It's pretty standard except for all the custom bits of like Canvas code and SVG code for the connection lines. I use, what is it called now? I think it's either called Pug or Jade, but it's like a HTML preprocessor, and I use Stylus for CSS. But CSS has gotten so good that I think if I was starting now, I'd just use raw CSS. But for the most, it's pretty standard. I think, but it's like a huge app just because of all the various interactions and all the features that the client app has. The server is a lot smaller and simpler. It's very, and there's a public API. I should have also mentioned that. Let me open that up too. And these are just some basic docs. But anywho, with routes. But basically all that is a Node app running Express, and the database is Postgres, and I use SQLize as my ORM to that. Let's see what else I'm using. And I'm using WebSockets. Yeah. Oh, and for caching on the local side, I was using local storage, but local storage, I think it only goes up to 5 megabytes or so, and it's synchronous as an API. I kind of outscaled it, so I switched to using IndexedDB, but I still use a key value storage. This is in the weeds. But yeah, I use IndexedDB for local caching.
One more question. May I ask, are you using Canva, like the HTML tag, so you know where your box or where your line is? Are you using it to control it?
So these are drawn in the DOM, so not Canvas, but there is a canvas behind the page, and that's where these paint selection strokes are being rendered. So it's kind of a combination of things. But for these, like if you were to open up the web inspector and open up one of these guys, you'd see that there's a list of cards. You probably can't read this, hold on. Oh boy. But the card elements are just a list of card elements that are absolutely positioned. So they have their XY coordinates and such.
Do you also have to store the set coordinates?
Yeah, so each item, the cards and the boxes have stored XY coordinates and also width and height.
So as a lot of data that you store, how do you manage to keep your server costs really low?
How do I manage my server, what?
Cost really low.
Oh, I guess it's the principle of just using really basic technologies. So there's, I guess, one kind of hack that I do that I kind of got from looking at Notion's network tab and seeing how they transmit a lot of changes. But when you use an API, you're doing like an API request for every change that you're making, and there's a lot of overhead. Like with Kinopio, I can select multiple cards and I can move them together, right? I don't want to necessarily, and I'm updating these things at like 60 frames a second, at least to the user. So what I do is I group related changes into what's called an operation, and they just send the delta of what's changed, and that's debounced, so it doesn't send more than, I don't know what it is, but maybe every 100 milliseconds or so. And so not overloading the server with a bunch of very similar changes is one thing that helps a lot.
Okay, we have 1 minute left. Any last questions?
Oh, I got one from this side. Did you raise your hands? I'll get you.
I was just curious, like, why would you use Vue.js over other frameworks, or was it just what you're familiar with?
So actually, this is my first time using Vue.js. I'd used React on Glitch, and the editor for Glitch. So Glitch had a community site where you like discover projects, and it also had the text editor. And for the text editor, we were using a homegrown solution. This was at the very early days of data binding frameworks, and there wasn't anything that really worked super well. So we used a custom solution for that. And so when I came to make this, I kind of looked at the frameworks that had ergonomically the most similarity to that custom framework in the way information is organized and the way data binding works. And the way templates worked. So yeah, I just ended up liking Vue for its ergonomics and also disliking React for its ergonomics, although I realize it's way more popular.
Okay, so that's all the time we have for this session. Everyone give a round of applause. Thank you so much. We'll still be around the conference if you want to ask questions. Where can they find you?
You can find me at Kinopio.club. You can find me at my blog, pketh.org. You can find me on Twitter and Blue Sky at pketh. Also on Mastodon, it's something, who knows. But try searching pketh, you'll probably find me. Yeah.
Yes. And stick around because right now we'll have the RBC workshop panel in about a couple minutes. But yes, that's all. Thank you.